Good morning, second grade. Let's get started with some phonogram review. The first one is the of her. What are you going to write? Good, the of her. Write it and say it while you write it. All right, class, what did you just write? Good, the of her. This is the of her. If you didn't have that one, write it 3 times. Say it while you write it. All right, our next phonogram is What are you going to write? Good. Say it while you write it. All right, class, what did you just write? Good. This is our So if you didn't have that, write it 3 times. Say it while you write it. These are some older ones, so I'm hoping we're getting pretty comfortable with them. All right, the next one is, and you'll need to look at my mouth. What are you going to write? Good. Say it while you write it. All right, class, this is our All right, so if you didn't have this, write it 3 times. Say it while you write it. All right, we'll stick to those that'll be in our words today because I think our lesson's going to be a little bit long. All right, our first word is cannot. What's the word, class? Good, cannot. I cannot believe how tired I am today. Cannot. Put your hand on your chin. Oh, before you do that, this is a compound word. So that means we take one word and we take a separate word and we smash them together and it makes a new word, cannot. All right, put your hand on your chin. How many syllables are in our compound word, cannot? Show me. Excellent, there are 2 syllables. All right, our first syllable is can. What's the first syllable? Good. I think we can do this whole word at one time. Remember your syllable break. So can is the first syllable. The second syllable is not. What sounds do you hear in not? Good. N, t. All right, write those sounds. And what's the first syllable? Good. Can. What's the second one? Good. Not. All right, write the sounds. Say them while you write them. Don't forget your syllable break. All right, class, put your finger under the first phonogram in the compound word you just wrote. What is it? Good. Excellent. Good. All right, what's next? All right, good. So make sure your word looks like this. Let's see if anything needs markings. Nope, there's nothing we need to mark on there. Let's just read our word. Good, cannot. All right, we're gonna pause for a minute before we do our next word because we're gonna learn about our punctuation mark that might be new to you that we'll need in our next word. All right, class, so we came over to the other board to talk about our punctuation mark. I'm hoping that you learned it last year. You should have come across it, but I know the end of last year was a little peculiar. All right, so our punctuation mark is like a comma, but it starts at the top baseline. So we start at the top baseline and just come down like that. So little. You might have seen it, or ideally what we when you encountered it last year in first grade, it would have been used to show possession. So if we're talking about a dog, but it is Fred's dog, meaning the dog that belongs to Fred, in order to show that that dog belonged to Fred, right, we would write Fred's name. All right. Then we would have an apostrophe. Oh, this guy, I forgot to tell you what it's called. It's called an apostrophe. It starts up at the top baseline and comes down. And then, only after we've done that apostrophe, would we add this. So that shows possession. I could use that for anything that belongs to Fred. Fred's notebook, Fred's pencil, Fred's friend. Any of those things we would use an apostrophe before the S. We add apostrophe and then the S, and that shows that it belongs to that person. All right, so an apostrophe, this is an apostrophe, and we're going to use it in a different way in what we're doing today. So we'll go back to the other board. All right, class, so the new thing that we're going to use an apostrophe in today is called a contraction. A contraction is when something gets smaller. If you think about it, if you're lifting weights and your muscle is getting smushed in, you are contracting it. So if something contracts, it gets smaller. In an English contraction, we make our words smaller by leaving out some of the letters. So we just leave out the letters. Oh my, that doesn't sound like something I would like generally. But we put the apostrophe in to show that the letters are missing. And then it's just fine. As long as we have that apostrophe, I do not mind at all. It's actually a good thing for us to know how to do. All right, so we are going to make a contraction of our word cannot. All right, cannot. Our contraction for cannot is can't. Can't. Class, what's our word? Good, can't. I can't wait until we are able to write longer sentences. Can't. All right, so for our contraction can't, what sounds do we hear in that word? Good, we hear k, a, n, t. All right, so we know some letters get left out. Let's see, we have k, a, n right here, and then we have t. Which letters are we leaving out? Good, n and ah. These are going to get left out of our contraction, but we are replacing them with, good, with an apostrophe. We can't just leave letters out, but if we replace them with an apostrophe, that's just fine. All right, so to spell our contraction can't, we're going to write, good, k, a, n. What's the very next thing we're going to write? All right, the next thing we're going to write is an apostrophe, and then what's our last thing? Good. So one more time, what are we going to write for our contraction can't? Excellent. K, a, n, apostrophe, t. Go ahead and write that. Say it while you write it. All right, put your finger under that first phonogram in the word you just wrote. What is it? Good. Good. All right. What's next? Good. I can't write the t yet. Otherwise, that's not going to make any sense. So what do I need to write? Good. Apostrophe, which again starts at the top baseline and is just like a little, I think of it like a comma coming down from the top baseline. And what's the last sound? Good. All right, so this is our contraction. Let's read it. Good, so even though the apostrophe is taking the place of the letters, we don't say anything for it. I mean, when you're helping me spell it, you say apostrophe, but I just read this can't. That apostrophe is not making any sound. All right, let's try making a couple more contractions. All right, before we make this next one, can you write the words do not for me? As in, do not put your pencil in your mouth. Do not. Make sure you're leaving a clock space between those two words. All right, so I hope for our do not, we have this. For do, it's a-o-u is saying its third sound. Do not. All right, well, we want to see that because those two words are going to be our next contraction. All right, so cannot, that was all one word, but we could still leave some letters out. This one is two separate words. So contraction, remember, it gets shorter, it gets smaller. So this, we're actually, when we have a contraction, we're going to make these two into one word. Does anyone know a shortened form of do not? Instead of saying, I do not like snakes, I could say, good, I don't like snakes. So don't is our next contraction. All right, what sounds do we hear in the word don't? Good, d-o, n-t. Let's compare that with our original word and see what gets left out. All right, we have d, good. Oh, now it's gonna change the sound of this, but we're still gonna have that same phonogram there. We've got this sound. Do we have this sound? So that is, we're replacing this with what? Good, we're replacing this with an apostrophe. So we'll circle it to remind ourselves of that like we did in our last word. All right, so to write don't, remember, we can't just leave this out. We have to put what punctuation mark in its place? Good, we have to put an apostrophe in its place. So to write the contraction don't, what are we going to write? Okay, I hope you said d-o-n and then the punctuation mark, which is what? Good, an apostrophe and then what? Good, t. All right, write the sounds in our contraction don't. Say them while you write them. All right, class. What did you write to spell the contraction don't? Good, d. Good, o. N. What's next? Good, apostrophe and good, t. You know, the nice thing about contractions is we don't seem to, there's no markings because we just remember what the words are that we make our contraction from. And so we don't have to mark anything. We just need to remember our apostrophe. All right, we've got one more contraction. That contraction is its. What's the contraction, class? Good, its. Its is a contraction. Who can guess what the two words its is a contraction of? Oh, maybe I should have used it in a sentence first. It's very warm in here. It's very warm in here. What do you think, what two words do you think its is a contraction of? All right, if you said it is, you're just right. So go ahead and write it is. Remember, those are two separate words right now. It is. All right, I'm hoping your words look like this. It is. So usually, well, when they're separate words, they're going to have a clock space. We're going to make them into one word. So it's. What sounds do you hear in it's? Good. It. Let's compare the sounds to these and see what gets left out. Let's see, we have it. Okay, that's there. And then, oh, what are we leaving out? Good, we're leaving out the I. All right, but we're not just leaving it out, we're replacing it. What are we replacing it with? Excellent, an apostrophe. So to spell it's, we need to write, oh, I hope you said apostrophe here. Good, it, apostrophe, s. Go ahead and write that contraction. Say it while you write it. All right, class, what do I need to write to spell my contraction? It's. Good, it. What punctuation do I need? Good, an apostrophe. And what's the last one? Good, it's. All right, what's our word, class? Good, it's. All right. We've got some more words. Let's call this good for now. You can go take a break, do something else, because this is important and I want you listening and not thinking, when's it going to be over? All right.